Now, Kenyans have really been complaining about the appointments from the Somali community within Kenya. In a country like Kenya, where there are over 40 different communities, there's been a lot of complaints from Kenyans about the appointments being made by the current administration of President William Samoei Ruto. And there have been complaints for a long time about appointments, most appointments coming in from our brethren in the Rift Valley region. More recently, Kenyans have focused on the appointments of Kenyan Somalis to various dockets within the security sector. And the analysis by a vast majority of Kenyans has been as follows. Ruto is looking to 2027, and therefore he wants the entire Somali vote in the bag. And this, according to this analysis, is the reason why there are so many Somali Kenyans appointed to these key security dockets. Now, I don't shoot down any analysis by anybody. What I usually do is to prod, dig deeper by asking questions. And I have a few. Why only the security docket? Because the assumption is that appointments to the security sector of government will guarantee William Ruto votes in 2027. Although I don't like talking about 2027, because 2027 is centuries away. With the problems we're facing in Kenya today, how are we going to reach 2027? We need to first of all start by sorting out the issues on our plate before we even think of 2025 or 2024, let alone 2027. Anyway, this has been the analysis. And my next question, which in my opinion is even more important, is, can we consider that this is much deeper than Kenyans are thinking? Can we consider the fact that for you to make a deal with a community, you have to give them what they want before you can ask for what you want? That is normal in politics. And so we also have to look at the question, what do the Somali community really want? And that may not be a very simple question to answer, but I'm going to give you some shocking information that will definitely stun most of you. That one I guarantee. So, let us put it this way. I accept your analysis. Now I want to do mine. And mine will focus on what the community is getting in return for delivering votes in the next presidential election. Whatever year that will be. And maybe at this juncture, we need to note that indeed there's plenty of evidence to suggest that our brothers and sisters from this honorable community have circled their wagons. They're together, united in supporting Ruto. Whichever side of the political divide they belong to. Now that's a very, very telltale sign. And in my view, it is very clear evidence that the community are looking for something. And in return, they will fully support, or they'll continue to fully support President William Samoei Ruto. So what is this they're looking for? Now the answer you'll receive from most Kenyans is because the Somali community are very good business people, very skilled traders, and they control a major part of the Kenyan economy. Because of that, they will want to have even more influence in the politics of the country, which will enable them to expand their businesses to the next level. This is what most people are saying. However, I want to draw your attention to something that is much more than food for thought for you to consider. Now, before we dive into it, I have several very close Somali friends. And I have one particular very close friend from this Kenyan community. I consider them my very close brothers. And therefore I would not want to offend them. However, in the tradition of this channel, I will speak nothing but the truth. And so if I offend anybody, I'm apologizing in advance, because this is a very sensitive issue. Now, with my knowledge on this community, I will tell you something that you may not know. They will never discuss the real politics of the community with somebody who's not a member of the community. Which is not strange, because we have other communities in Kenya which do the same. Like the House of Mumbi, for instance. Now, many of us are fooled because members of the House of Mumbi do a lot of talking. But the truth is, you will never know what the community is thinking until an election comes around. And I'm talking about a free and fair election. Not an election which is decided by the Venezuelans. I know you know what I mean. When a free and fair election comes along, you will immediately know what the community is thinking. And our Somali brothers and sisters are exactly the same. Specifically, when it comes to this very sensitive issue I'm about to put on the table. And it is this: the psyche, the belief of the community, is that they should all be in one country. Okay? Now, before you start screaming and judging, let me give you a little piece of history, which is very instructive. The whole of Somalia country used to be under one umbrella until the year 1925, when the British colonialists divided the region, and gave the northern part to the Italians as a reward for their contribution during the Second World War. And of course the Brits retained the southern half of Somali country, which they named the Northern Frontier District, which of course is today the northeastern region of the country. Folks, as we're going to see very shortly, this is where the whole problem started. Because after that division of the region of Somalia, everything went wrong. In June 1960, just 4 days after the British government had declared their part of the Somaliland Protectorate, the southern region, independent, they also declared that they believe in a unified Somali country. And most people, at this pronouncement, assumed that everything was okay. But that is when the dance called twist started. In the 60s, there was a very admirable dance style called twist. Twist. You twist this way, then you twist in the opposite direction. That is exactly how the politics played out in this region. Because after Britain had made this very clear statement, they twisted in the opposite direction. And they decided to carry out a poll amongst the Somali to establish what they favored. A divided Somalia or a unified one. Now, the informal poll clearly showed that over 88% of Somalis wanted a unified country. Okay? But the twist continued. In December 1962, after pressure from the Somali government, the Brits appointed a commission to establish what the views of the majority were. Now, this is strange. Wasn't this view already known? But a commission was appointed. And the results of the commission were predictable, because they came back and said 5 out of the 6 regions were for a unified Somalia, which is a landslide. But still, the twist continued. Now, in early 1963, the British government realized that the Kenyan nationalists, who were in the process of winning their independence, wanted to keep the northern frontier district as part of the country called Kenya. Yeah, and they granted the Kenyans their wish. And the government of Somalia responded immediately and broke all diplomatic ties with the UK. And so what ended up happening is that the infant nation called Kenya, as it went into full independence, was already grappling with a crisis in the northeastern, which came to be known as the Shifter War. Now, most Kenyans living in Nairobi and in other parts of the country at that time had no idea of what was going on, because there were widespread reports of harassment of the Somali community by the Kenyan government. Atrocities even. Yeah. But the news Kenyans got was, oh, that is just the shifter problem. Yeah, we are sorting it out. Let me tell you a story. As a young child, yeah, I've never forgotten this, although I was very young. I don't think I was older than 5 years old at the time. We used to stay in Isiolo. Yeah, my dad was posted there. And one night, just before we went to bed, we had very loud gunfire exchanges just outside our house, within the compound. We were terrified, and my dad was not in. And so what our mother did is that she put me and my younger brother, we were only 2 at the time, inside a wardrobe, and she shut the door firmly. Yeah. And she lit a torch inside the wardrobe so that we don't get scared of the dark. And I could hear the gunshots outside continuously, even as I dozed off to sleep. Years later, yeah, my dad told me what had happened on that night. He was at the officers' mess, very close to the house, when suddenly there was an attack by the shifter bandits from Somalia. And of course, shortly after that, armed policemen and the military personnel in Isiolo emerged to defend the town. And the exchange of fire and the fighting continued well into the night. And to illustrate how serious it was, my late political lecturer told me that when the gunfire started, they hit the ground. Yeah, you lie flat on the ground. And somebody switched off the lights, yeah, so that they're not easy targets. And after a short while, where he was lying down, he noticed that there was some liquid, water, dripping from somewhere. And he touched the water with his fingers and smelt it. It was urine belonging to the officer who was lying down just ahead of him somewhere. Yeah, that is how serious it was. Now I know this happened definitely after the year 1967. It must have been either 1968 or 69. But I read in the history books that there was some sort of ceasefire in 1967 which ended the crisis. But I'm a witness, the crisis did not end in 1967. And so the question I want to leave you with is the following. Is the idea of a unified Somalia dead? Please answer that sensitive, controversial question for yourself. But the way some people are behaving, I'm tempted to say it is still alive. And I don't know if I should share my view because it's very controversial. My view is, what was Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya's founding president, and Tom Mboya, yeah, the 2 gentlemen most responsible for this, what were they thinking on insisting that the Northern Frontier District should remain within the country called Kenya? What were they thinking? Yeah, because taking the geography of the area, the history, etc., it didn't make sense. Unless, of course, some Zungus got involved and they wanted this for strategic reasons. which of course is very possible. But they left us Kenyans on the ground with the problem, because so many Kenyan lives have been lost, including innocent ones, as a result of this one decision, which really, when you think about it, didn't make sense at the time. I'm not naive. Of course, it is too late now. Yeah, so many things have happened. It's very complicated now. But that is where the problem started. And it would easily have been avoided by somebody making the right decision. Now, the really scary thought here is that when you consider this information I've just given you, one cannot help but ask the question, what is this thing that is uniting the community so closely to each other in support of the Ruto administration? You know, recently, Honorable Farah Malim Mohammed, who is the legislator for Dabab, in the Northern Frontier District, if you want to call it that, who is also the deputy party leader of the Wiper Party, Kalonzo Musyoka, made some very confusing remarks. He denounced the Mandamanos by Raila Odinga. And yet this man is still in Wiper. And Wiper is in Azimio. Isn't that confusing? And he said that he did not see any need for Mandamano, that Azimio should wait for the opportunity in 2027. Now, isn't that very clear support for the Ruto administration? Very clear. And yet is on the opposite side of the political divide. Now, let's look at something else very super fascinating. The population of this region. Now, the truth is, the population of this region, if we're just to say the truth, is a closely guarded state secret. Okay? Sample the following. The 2009 national census revealed that the total population of this area is 2,310,757. Yeah, slightly over 2.3 million. However, these figures for this region were nullified, cancelled by the then planning minister, Wycliffe Oparanya. And he gave some lame excuse about birth certificates not matching with IDs or something like that. However, on 21st March 2016, a court of law in Kenya, the Court of Appeal, declared this census results for the region valid. Hey! Now in 2019, the census results told us that the population of the region was 3 million. Yeah, which does not make sense. In 10 years, with no major conflict in the region, the population grew by only 700,000. I'm not an expert, but hiyo hesabu haingii, doesn't make sense. Most people put the real population of the region at almost double that figure, at least over 5 million. And that is not counting the members of this community spread all over Kenya. Yeah. Bottom line, folks, the Somali community, our brothers and sisters, are a very significant voting bloc in the country called Kenya. Maybe even the most significant. Oh yes. Now, so far, the major problem in this particular part of Kenya is that most of the people here don't even feel they're Kenyan. Because, for example, it has been a problem obtaining an identity card, a Kenyan identity card, if you're from this area. And to tell you the truth, you can't blame the government. How would you know which particular members of the community how would you be able to tell which member of the Somali community is a Kenyan and which one is not? Because they're all Somalis. The history of a family does not respect borders. Yeah, you could be living in Kenya, your uncle is in Somalia, your grandfather is in Somalia, most of the people in Somalia, and you're living in Kenya. So are you a Kenyan or are you a Somali national? Very complicated. Now, the latest is that I understand it is no longer a problem for members of the community to get ID cards. This government has loosened restrictions, and some Kenyans have security concerns over this policy decision. And all this is happening when people are looking for the first time at the Somali community as a significant voting bloc in Kenya. Because you need a Kenyan ID to get a voter's card. I'm sure you follow me. Hii Kenya yetu tuko kwa shida. Now I hope my video today has been informative, and that those of us who are not aware are now aware of how complex the problem is. Because in my opinion, Kenyan Somalis are Kenyans, and they have every right to enjoy being a Kenyan and to enjoy the rights that a Kenyan has in their country. That's very important. But a mistake was made a long time ago that really complicates this situation. My appeal to you, my fellow Kenyans, these are our brothers and sisters, and the situation here is complicated. Kenyans should be accommodating. And rather than fire barbs at the community, Kenyans should seek a lasting solution, a way to correct a mistake, a terrible mistake that was done a long, long time ago. Now, before I go, I have something that will be very useful to very many people on this channel. You see, the audience this channel reaches is very unique. We have many Kenyans, regulars on this channel, who are in the diaspora. We have many Kenyans in very senior positions in our country and living within the borders of Kenya who are regulars on this channel. We have many politicians who are regulars on this channel. That is a very unique audience. And in case you have a service or a product that you think this particular audience will be very interested in, and it is something genuine, something that will add value to their lives, something that will help Kenyans through these very difficult times, also through these very dangerous times. In case you have such a product or service, I will be very interested in partnering with you, and indeed even doing a video, a special video, focused on your product or service. And of course doing it in an interesting way, introducing a new interesting angle, not from your point of view, from the point of view of your potential customer, from the point of view of your most satisfied customers. So if you're in business, drop me an email. You can see the email address on your screens right now. As my contribution to Mother Kenya at this difficult time, I will do that video for you completely for free, using my voice, using my talent, using the knowledge I have gained over the years, to be able to communicate to your potential audience, potential customers, in a way that it will be very difficult for you to communicate to them anywhere else. Okay, so I think you should take full advantage of this limited opportunity. Of course, I'll only take a limited number of businesses. Na sio maringo, it is because it's not practical to do so many. So I'll just do a few as my contribution. Of course, I'll ask for a small fee for my time, but of course it will be a pittance, a fraction of what you'd have normally paid to reach such an audience. So all you have to do is drop me an email, give me as much detail about your business as possible, send me your telephone number, if possible, and I will get back to you after I've done my research, on your company, your business, etc., etc. I have my way even to be able to reach your customers, your current customers, those who are satisfied. And if I think that you have something that will add value to the lives of Kenyans, I will do that for you. And I'm sure it will be of great benefit to you. And also it's yet another way to support this channel and to support our cause here for a better Kenya. It is all in line with that mission of a better Kenya. Has this video made you intrigued about the presidency, especially the Kenyan presidency? Or have you always been fascinated by this office? Well, I have a recommendation to make. I have an ebook titled Dark Secrets of the Kenyan Presidency. Many of you have already read it, but many of you have also not read it. But that's not all. I have also adapted most of the book into videos, and you can receive both the book and the videos based on the book in your email, in the next few seconds. You can see the offer on your screens right now, only $8.99. And I will even throw in something more, 3 months free membership to my weekly intelligence briefings. Now that has to be the offer of the year. So take full advantage of it. It will not last for long, just 1 or 2 days. So please rush and make sure that you get hold of Dark Secrets of the Kenyan Presidency. It has some very fascinating stories, most of them never before told. I'm sure you've never heard those stories. And they're not just stories, reality deep in State House. Okay? It is a super fascinating read, and also super fascinating to watch those videos. Dark Secrets of the Kenyan Presidency is a book like no other I have ever written. And for me, it was a very emotional experience. I started writing it in 2008, when the horrors of the 2007-2008 clashes were still very fresh on my mind. Untold horror that no Hollywood movie can ever match. And I knew then, more than anybody else, that indeed in Kenya, politics is a matter of life and death. And so writing this book was a journey of learning for me, and a very steep learning curve, for me. I finally completed it one day in 2009. The time was 3 or 5 a.m. I was exhausted, drained, and what is more, I had no idea what kind of contraption I had come up with. Was it good? Was it worth the read? Was it interesting? Because no matter how important your message is, if you do not deliver it in an interesting way, if you bore your audience, the message will never reach home. Looking back today, the reaction has always been very positive for this ebook. Some have called it a thriller. Many others have said it has changed forever the way they look at Kenyan politics. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.